Lisbon is one of my favorite European cities, and November is my favorite time to visit. November is not the typical tourist season, but trust me, it's magical in its own way. In November, Lisbon is preparing to celebrate Christmas and New Year. The smell of roasted chestnuts fills Lisbon streets, and you will feel the holiday vibe everywhere, especially when you visit the many food festivals and eat a lot of food.
The fire is slowly dying, and my dear, we're still goodbye. So as long as you love me, so sing it. Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow.
The most common question I hear about visiting Lisbon in November is the weather. Don't worry about it. The temperature is mild. Most of the time, it's around 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Eventually, you may have some rainy days, but mostly it happens at the end of the month, at the end of November. The other frequent question I get from my friends and viewers is what should we see in Lisbon first? There's so many options. Let me show you my favorite sites. If you have never been to Lisbon, begin your trip by visiting Belem, a historical district of the city. The 16th century Jeronimos Monastery in Belem is number one on my list. Do not be intimidated by the word monastery. This place is beautiful and full of myths and unsolved mysteries. The best part of November trip is no crowds and no lines. I think it is a perfect time to visit Jeronimos. Wandering around the monastery with hardly no tourists around me, I felt that I had stepped back in time. I almost could see the monks walking through the same gallery centuries ago. Some researchers believe that the monastery's leaders had strong connections with the followers of the Knights Templar, and that is why there's so many symbols decorating the columns and the walls, coded references to secret Templar knowledge. Look at this, just look at this. Almost every column is decorated with weird looking creatures. A snail is a symbol of wisdom, persistence, patience, peace, and harmony. A bat is associated with the human willingness to engage with the uncertainties of life. So, to me, the images of snails and bats make sense. But what about these creatures? What symbols and mysteries do they represent? Some historians suggest that these creatures have nothing to do with symbols and mysteries of the Knights Templar. During medieval times, it was believed that the ugly creatures helped to protect holy places from evil forces. During the horrible earthquake in 1755, which destroyed most of Lisbon, Jeronimos was stood without any serious damages. Who knows? Maybe because of these creatures' protection, the monastery survived this natural disaster. You give yourself enough time to walk around Jeronimos and definitely stop at the monastery's cathedral. Both the monastery and the cathedral were constructed to commemorate the Portuguese explorer Vasco da Gama and his successful voyage to India. From the beginning of the 16th to mid 18th century, Portugal established a vast overseas empire, bringing enormous wealth to the Portuguese monarchy. And our next stop will be at the Ajuda Royal Palace. But before moving on, it will be nice, guys, if you like this video, subscribe, leave me some nice comment because it inspires me to keep doing what I'm doing, creating
travel videos. Thank you so much.
And now let's visit the Ajuda Royal Palace. It's number 2 on my list. Welcome to the world of Portuguese royal lifestyle, elegance, and ambition. This place is huge. Give yourself at least a couple hours for exploring it. The construction of Ajuda Palace began in 1795. It was unfinished due to political and financial challenges, mainly because of Napoleon's invasion of Portugal and the exile of the royal family to Brazil. In 1807, when French troops were literally 2 steps away from Lisbon, the royal family, along with thousands of nobles, ministers, and other officials, left for Brazil. At that time, Brazil was a Portuguese colony. The royal family stayed in Brazil for 13 long years and then they returned to Lisbon. Every time I visit Ajuda Palace, I think how rapid and irreversible time is. For tourists, this place is just a historical site, but for someone a long time ago, it was home. What was a cozy home filled with happiness, laughter, arguments, and quiet moments, now a silent witness of history. While visiting Ajuda Palace, give yourself a chance to see the Ajuda Botanical Garden. It is number 3 on my list mainly because of the ideal French garden. French gardens became very popular in Portugal in the 17th century. Originally, Jardin à la Française was designed by French noble lady Diana Poitiers. I'm going to tell you a story of a little boy who inspired Diana Poitiers to create a French garden. For that, we will step back into 16th century France. The first wife of Francois I, Claude, died very young. She was only 25 years of age. She knew that she was dying, and she asked her closest friend, Diana Poitiers, to take care of her son, Henry II. And Diana Poitiers kept the promises. She kept promises. She took good care of Henry. At the age of 7, Henry began to show interest in geometry, math, and especially in geometry. And Diana Poitiers wanted him to keep studying math and geometry. And one day, by her order, in one of her gardens, all the trees and all the shrubs were trimmed into geometric shapes because she wanted Henry to keep studying. So, the famous French garden, as we know it today, was created for educational purpose. The Ajuda garden is rather small, but don't be in a rush to leave it without seeing the fountain. I wonder why the sea motifs with ugly snakes, dragons, and mermaids have been so popular and have been used so much in decorating the fountains at royal estates. If you plan on traveling around Portugal, definitely visit the Queluz Royal Palace. It is located nearby Lisbon on your way to Sintra. In the Royal Park, you will find amazingly beautiful French garden and the fountains richly decorated with ugly dragons and disturbing looking snakes. I have a different video about Queluz, the Portuguese Versailles, as it's named in guidebooks. Now let's go back to Belem. Marina Museum is number 4 on my list. This museum is amazing, simply amazing. It will tell you the story of a nation that once led Portugal to the age of world discovery. In 1498, Vasco da Gama sailed to India. Just imagine crossing the ocean on a boat like this one. Naval history is not my field of expertise, but visiting this museum, I was fascinated by the exposition. This museum is not just about naval conflicts, ships, and battles. It tells the story about how people traveled, traded, and communicated centuries ago. The Coach Museum is number 5 on my list. It's one of the most unique museums in the world. It has a collection of royal carriages from the 16th to the 19th centuries. This museum has two buildings. Right now, I'm showing you the main building of the museum. It was designed to display the massive horse carriages so visitors can experience the power and prestige of the royal past. Here's another travel tip for you. If you plan to visit Porto, stop on your way at the Palace of Bussaco. The idea to build this fairy tale palace belonged to King Carlos I. He wanted to impress his wife, Queen Amélie, who was born and raised in France. Guess what? Queen Amélie was a founder of the Coach Museum in 1905. And last but not least, although all the historical sites of Belem I've been talking about are pretty much within walking distance from each other, it is impossible to see all of them within one day. It will be a great excuse to come to Lisbon once again to enjoy another unforgettable day in Belem. That's it for today, my dear viewers. Thank you so much for watching today. Until next time.